I used to hear about snakes in the toilet bowl from a distance, and I never knew it would come this close until the news about that Air Force lady who was beaten to death by a snake in her house started making the rounds on social media. She was said to have been bitten by a poisonous snake when she sat on her toilet seat in her house at Abuja in Nigeria. And it is suspected that that snake got into her toilet through the septic tank, or what we popularly call soak away. Welcome back to Care Zone. If this is your first time, please subscribe and turn on your notifications so you don't miss any of my videos. In this video, we'll be answering 3 questions. The first one is, what are the dangers of having rodents and reptiles in the home? The second is, how can we prevent these rodents and reptiles, especially snakes, from coming into the home? And the third question we're answering today is, what can we do if a person unfortunately gets bitten by a snake? So sit back as we dive in and answer these questions. Remember, like they say, prevention is better than cure. So we want to discuss how we can prevent ourselves from running into these life-threatening danger of getting bitten by a snake right in our own homes. For the purpose of this video, we will assume that all snakes are venomous and that their bites can cause severe injuries and death. And we are making this assumption because at the time of a snake bite, a person may be too frightened to do any analysis about what kind of snake just bit him, or how to know whether the snake is venomous or not. And of course, we know it is advisable not to go after a snake that just got a person bitten, because you run the risk of getting bitten again. And whenever there's a snake bite, time is of the essence, because a snake bite can lead to death. So the advice is to treat any snake bite as a medical emergency. So now let's go into answering these 3 important questions. And the first one, like I said earlier, is, what are the dangers of having rodents and reptiles come into the home? Rodent droppings can cause diseases. Some rodents can bite, and their bites can cause injuries and even death, as we have seen trending on social media about snake bites. And one last thing about the presence of rodents in the home is that it is an invitation to reptiles that feed on them. So if you have a lot of rats in the house, then you are inviting a snake into the house, because the snake will come in search of food, and its food is the rat. So how can we prevent the ingress of rodents into the home? One of the things we need to do is seal up all holes. We may have holes in the walls, on the floor, on the windows, wherever there are holes linking our home to the outside. Those holes should be sealed up. Even this includes holes that are created on the walls for electric wiring. All of these things should be sealed up to prevent ingress of rodents into the home. Another thing we need to do is, if we already have these rodents in the house, we should set baits and traps to catch them and get rid of them. We should also keep the home clean and ensure that our food items, or our food storage area, is completely clean. There are no droplets of food, dry food, wet food, whatever it is. We want to make sure that all our food are stored in well covered containers. The kitchen cabinets, underneath the kitchen cabinets, the kitchen area, the bin area, everywhere should be kept clean, and we should not leave food droppings around, because those are the things that the rodents come to eat. And so the rodents come in to feed on these things, and the reptiles or the snakes also come in search of these rodents in order to feed on them. And it will be really sad for one to find a snake walk into them in their home. It's traumatic. Another thing we need to do is to fumigate regularly. There are special fumigants that are meant to scare all these animals or rodents away from the home. So periodically we should make it a habit to fumigate areas in the house and around the house. We should also ensure that we clear bushes and grasses that can become hiding places for these reptiles. When everywhere is clean, there will be no hiding place for the animals or the reptiles. Even in our clothing area, like the wardrobes, we want to reshuffle and declutter the area regularly, so that way rodents will not make a home in those places. When there's no disturbance at all, they can stay there for months and even begin to reproduce within those areas. Now, I'm not a plumber, but I would like to talk a little about the toilet plumbing system. Of course, we already know that part we see in our toilet within the home, and the rest of the contraption or the rest of the construction is beneath the toilet, which we cannot see, and that's the piping. Now, the whole of the toilet system is actually a closed system from the toilet seat to the soak pit or the soak away. So naturally, with the way it is built, there shouldn't be ingress of any rodent or reptile into the toilet. So this tells us that if there's an opening in the plumbing system of the toilet, it is possible for a rodent or a reptile to find its way into the toilet area where you can see within your house in the toilet bowl. So it is important to seal up any openings in the pipings. If a pipe is broken, it is better to fix it. And if the soak away is broken, it's also important to get it fixed, because snakes love cool and wet or damp areas where they can hide and cool their bodies, and these places are the choicest places for them. So to avoid it, we need to keep the whole of those places sealed. As you can see in this picture, you can see that the toilet is supposed to be a closed system all the way from the toilet seat in your home through the piping down to the soak away. So as long as there's no opening within that system, there shouldn't be a snake coming in, or even any other rodent coming into the toilet from beneath that area. Other ways that the snake can get into the house, like I mentioned before, is any openings in the walls or the doors or windows, wherever in the house. So these should also be taken care of by sealing off and making sure that the environment is kept clean. Now, unfortunately, if it happens that a person gets bitten by a snake, what can be done? Like I said earlier too, this should be treated as an emergency, because the venom from the bite of a snake can cause paralysis, low blood pressure, difficulty breathing, vomiting, muscle weakness, pain, shock, and even death. So I'll be sharing with you some tips to ensure that a snake bite is treated with the emergency that it requires. The very first thing that should be done is that the person who is bitten by the snake should be rushed to the hospital. If you get bitten by a snake, do not try to go after the snake, because you could get bitten again. But if it's possible for you to quickly get a shot of the snake, or at least get another stare, another look at the snake in order to identify what type of snake it is, then that will be good, because it will even help the doctors when you arrive at the hospital. It will help the doctor to have an idea of what type of snake bit the person and which antivenom to use. Call the emergency or start rushing the person to the hospital. Loosen up all belts, jewelries, and any other tight clothing. Place a bandage on that wound in order to give it some pressure, not excessive pressure, but just a little pressure around it with a bandage. It is also important to keep the area of the bite below the heart level, so that this reduces the speed of spread of that venom. At this time, it is important to avoid drinking caffeine or alcohol, as this will make the absorption of the venom into the body even faster. Another thing I noticed people do is when there's a snake bite, they make a cut on the wound and start trying to suck out the venom. This practice is actually not good, even for the person who is doing the sucking. It puts you at risk of ingesting the venom and also having the same effects that the person who got bitten by the snake might have. And you could also be infecting the wound by doing this. So avoid trying to suck the venom out. Simply just rush the person to the hospital and let the person get medical attention. This is an emergency and it should be treated as such. So after having done all these things in order to protect your home and keep everywhere clean and safe, nothing still stops you from looking into the toilet before you sit. Turn on the lights when you get into the toilet. Look in, flush it before you sit. At least that will help you to sit in the toilet with some rest of mind. So till I see you again, I always want you to stay healthy and safe and continue to protect yourself and your family. So watch out for my next video. Till I see you then, bye.